Hi everyone, Julie Boya here. So excited with another interview in my self-love series. I have my good friend Christine Line. Welcome, Christine.
Glad to be here.
Yay! I'm so excited. I know we finally connected. It's so good. So Christine is actually the owner of Push Fit Studio, which is a boutique fitness studio. And she also has a global high performance coaching practice. And Christine and I met many, many years ago now. It's been over a decade that we've known each other. I was training for my third Ironman triathlon, and Christine was one of the coaches. And we didn't really know each other during that time. Like, you were a coach, I was an athlete. But we reconnected several years later through my USANA, because Christine, with her studio, of course, it was really good alignment for us to work together in USANA as well. And since then, I've watched Christine grow, invest in herself, invest in her business, and she has an incredibly powerful story of personal growth, self-development, of business growth. And I just thought Christine was an ideal person to bring onto these videos and this podcast. So Christine, I would just love for you to share a little bit about how you got to kind of where you are today with your studio and your coaching and your own personal journey.
Yeah, awesome. Oh my gosh, this is like such a big question when you ask people. Do you feel like, oh, I gotta write it in?
I think what happens when I ask people to share their story is they'll share like the parts that really are those pivotal moments that kind of got them to where they are. And I know for you, you had some of those moments where it was like, I've got to make this decision in order to move forward in my own life. And that's what I really love about you, Christine, is you're not afraid to make those difficult decisions.
No, I literally just had this conversation with one of my coaches. I'm a leaper, when like things feel like they're crazy and there's no way out, and you feel like you want to run the opposite way. I'm all about like, this is the exact signal and moment to lean in and take action and just like literally trust and surrender, knowing that God's got my back and he's going to show up in a big way, and the more we practice that muscle, the more you can trust it, that it really does show up that way, more than we ever imagined. So I've been in the health and wellness industry for like 20 years. My first job ever was in a big box gym in Florida. So I always had this like passion and love for training and exercise, because in my youth, it was really what got me through the hard times in my life. I had a very chaotic upbringing, and I've talked about this a lot in the past, but really, athletics gave me like my roots where, I could have easily gone another way. We actually like lost our home when I was in high school, and we, were forced to move out because my parents went bankrupt and stuff. And it was just like a really rough time. And so for me, those deep roots of how powerful, exercise could be to like help us with our confidence and our strength, those roots were there. So I've been in the industry for many, many years. And then, fast forward, it was always like a hobby, something I did. Even when you and I met, I didn't have the studio initially. That back then I was coaching. I was a triathlete myself. I was coaching, running, triathlon clinics, cycling clinics, and I was training people in various places, but it wasn't my full-time job, because, people don't really make money doing what they love. They make money doing other stuff, and then they have to go do what they love after work and on the weekends, right? So that was kind of my thing. My ex-husband and I had a marketing company that was actually pretty successful. And I trained and did all this stuff as a hobby to really nourish myself and practice self-love. This is where I got my cup full, right? And it was my passion. And it was where I felt most alive. Well, in 2009, unfortunately, we ended up getting divorced, and it was not a pretty divorce. It was actually like it was one of the most difficult moments of my life. And I was 33 and I had 3 very young kids. And the divorce did not go at all the way I expected. I was left really living with my girlfriend in her basement with these 3 kids, with no money at all to my name, like literally nothing. I didn't know how I was going to pay rent. My car broke down. In fact, I remember a guy on my soccer team giving me, not even loaning, giving me $6,000 check so that I could have a vehicle to drive. And at that time, I was actually out to having a coffee with a client of mine who was also coaching, who was an Ironman triathlete. And she said, Christine, you have got to open a studio. because you're such an amazing coach. And at the time I was like, do you know my situation? Like I don't have money for rent. Really? Like I borrowed money from a guy on my soccer team to buy a car. Like it felt so foreign and like out of reach. And just, when something, and I call it my soul, like my soul just, when she said that, it was like my spirit just went, but what if, and I just felt everything inside of me come alive when she said that, because I'd always dreamt of having my own studio. And I always thought one day, once I have enough money, then I'll open a studio when I have enough clients. And it doesn't work that way. How it works is that when we have a desire, we don't act on it, eventually we get to a really painful place where God gives us the opportunity to act on it and open the door that does not look anything like what we thought the door was going to look like. So here I am with no money, don't have a clue how I'm going to support my kids, thinking I'm going to have to go back to Toronto and get a 9-to-5 job and like never see my kids. And I was like, I went home and I'm like, how can I found a little spot not far away, and I remember the first and last month's rent was going to be $4,000. And I was like, that was such a big amount of money. Like I didn't know. And so I went home and I found my wedding ring. And I was like, well, I'm not going to use this anymore. So one of my friends happened to be a jeweler. And I called him and I said, Jacques, how much will you give me for the ring? And he said, $4,000. So I was like, okay, done, right? I'm like, $4,000 is exactly what I need. I didn't even have enough money to buy signage for the studio, but that's what I did. Was I opened, I took the leap of faith. I was like, I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to bet on myself. I'll do this for a month, 3 months. I don't even know. I totally gave up any expectation of how long I was going to do it. I was like, I'm just going to open the doors and see what happens. And we literally opened with no weights. Like we don't even have equipment. We had yoga mats and all we did was core classes and yoga and like triathlon stuff, because that's all I could. And then the first month, we made 7,000 and it just kept growing. And the first year we did 6 figures, and the next year it doubled and it kept doubling. And then, it's just now this is our 10th year.
Yeah.
And it's evolved from just triathlon and run coaching to, complete like training, nutrition, wellness, mindset. And now I call it soul coaching.
Oh, it is amazing, because I didn't know that part of your story, how you got from the coaching that I knew you as to opening the studio, because we didn't connect for all those years. When I met you, the studio was up and running. You had employees and classes. So I was like, oh, it just happened overnight. And that's, I think, sometimes the part of the story that we miss for a lot of people is that you walk in when someone's successful and you don't know that actually, you had to sell your wedding ring that was no longer of value, but it exactly gave you what you needed, that's the God moment, right? It's like, I needed this and this is how it was provided. And it's exactly what I needed at that moment. So that's really, really powerful. And you created a community.
Yes.
People love coming to your studio because there's a community feeling to it. You were in a smaller, not anymore, but at the time, Waterdown's a smaller community, right? A suburb of Toronto, and even a suburb of Hamilton. It's not a bustling, huge community, but you really gave people what they were looking for. You filled a niche that people were desperate for. And that also, I think, contributed to your quick success. You came in with a reputation, you provided a space, and you built a community. And those things, I think, make up success, I think, in any business. So that's amazing. Now, all during this time, it's been a decade.
Yeah, it's been a decade, and a lot has changed.
A lot has changed, but one thing that you do on a regular basis is you invest in yourself. You go to courses, you go to trainings, you spend your money and your time investing in Christine. And I think I'd like to chat about that a little bit more, because I think that's something a lot of, not just business owners, but a lot of women struggle with is, being worthy of this kind of investment of time and money.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel so blessed, because I think, for me, it's been so huge. Like this whole when then mentality, you know, like when this happens, then I'll finally take care of myself. Or when I have enough money, then I'll finally open up my dream little business that's always been on my heart. Or when I have enough clients, then I'll, you know, when I have enough time, I'll work out. When then. And I got to be honest, like that's one thing I'm so grateful for, all the hardship that I had when I was younger, is that, you know, it really taught me there's no when then, like the then is now. The then is like you do it or else you'll be forced to do it later when it feels painful. So as I mentioned, you know, just having to really step up and start to take care of myself when I was younger in many ways, not because my mom wasn't there, but just like I needed to develop my own confidence. I needed to develop my own strength in order to deal with what was coming up. And because I had exercise from such a young age, I realized how powerful that was over like really having control of my mindset, having control of my emotions, having control of my state. And as all this stuff was going on around me that felt very devastating, where it would have devastated a lot of people, the one constant thing was always, I can control this, I can control this, I can be the navigator of my ship as long as my mental emotional state is good. And it was the same thing when I got divorced. And as a matter of fact, I remember my ex specifically saying to me at one point, I will do whatever it takes to mentally and emotionally destroy you. And I remember that exact moment, him looking at me, because I was very reliant on him financially. And I thought, there is no way that will ever happen. And it's just been in my DNA like that. It is, I will not compromise my mental and emotional health no matter what, because if I knew that if I let myself be broken that way, I was like, my kids are going to suffer. Really, you know, and all this stuff like this is so backwards, because we're like, I have to serve everyone else. I have to take care of everyone else at the expense of my mental, emotional, physical health. But if I'm not mentally clear and I don't have the bandwidth to deal with struggle, and I'm emotionally all over the place, and then my kids become responsible for my emotions because they don't want to make mommy upset or mommy stressed or mommy this, and physically I don't have the bandwidth, like it's a huge burden to put on the people around us. We can't lead, we can't. So I do want to say this. Yes, it's something that has been ingrained in me from very early on. I'm so fortunate. I thank God every day for all the hardships I've had. Yet it's one of the things that I'm relentless about. And to the point that, you know, I'm not going to sit here and like blow unicorns and rainbows, you know, out here, is that you have to become, and when I work with my clients, I talk about developing ruthless rituals and being relentless about them. And all my clients know, every time we check in, I'm like, how you doing on your ruthless rituals? And the word ruthless is so important, because everyone will, like, there will always be people judging who aren't doing it for themselves, and we're just a mirror for them, and it makes them uncomfortable. So the judgment will come sometimes, you know, from others, and it's not about us. And life will throw us curveballs, and that's why we have to be ruthless. And because there's going to be lots of opportunities to start to question ourselves. And the one thing I've really learned is that, you know what, I got to stay true to this. I really believe, like, my body's a vessel. I'm here for divine love, for light, and I'm a vessel, and I got to take care of this so I can take care of the world, my people, my business, my kids, my kingdom, all the things. And it's my responsibility.
Yeah. Wow. It is a gift that you went through all those hardships. I guess that's the way you look at it. And you became this person with these ruthless rituals and just said, like, this is it. Ruthless. And, you know, for me, ruthless rituals are all around, as you can see by my sign, it's all around gratitude. Like that. Those have become my ruthless rituals. And that's what I'm here to share and to teach. And I'm leaning more into my gifts. And I did go through a lot of a lot, because I got nervous. And it's funny because I get asked a lot of questions. It's like, well, how are these interviews and this podcast and all things? Well, how are these things going to make you money? Especially like my parents don't quite understand, like, a lot of the stuff that I do. And I'm like, but it's not, if that's my reason for doing business is to make money first, then that's not actually what's going to manifest. It's about finding, and you said this too, is like you were doing your passion project on the side, and finally you embraced it and said, this is what I'm doing for my career. And then the money did come, and
it just flows.
It flows. And I think that's like a tricky thing because, you know, what's fun about these interviews is I do interview a lot of, well, mostly female entrepreneurs, and almost everybody went through that moment of going to zero and then doing what they actually love. And that's what leads to success in the long run, because if you're not aligned with what you're doing, if you had taken that job in Toronto, I mean, you would have, who knows where you would have.
Oh, mentally, physically, and emotionally, it would have been so straining. And that's the thing. You nailed it. It's like I always say, it's not about achievement. It's about alignment. And when our body's physically in alignment, when our emotions, when our spirit is in alignment, like everything starts to move organically and flow. And so, yeah, I'm hands down, you know, but I will say that, you know, it's that part of our brain, that amygdala, that old reptilian brain that wants to keep us safe and I just came off a 2.5-day retreat with my clients up in Muskoka, and we literally talked about this for the last 2 days. It's like, how do I stop that old program from running? Because that program will always, its primary job is to tell you to stop, because it's unknown and it's not what we, you know, predictable and all the things. So, you know, we can't listen to that voice that's up in the head, because its number one job is to keep you stuck.
And one of the reasons why we do hire a coach or work with others or get in mastermind or go to retreats is because some of these things are hard to do on our own. And asking for help and support is what actually gets us to that next level without having to go to zero, without having to go through tremendous hardship, without having to go through terrible divorce or parental bankruptcy, right? Like you have already been through the difficult things. I myself have been through some really tough things, you know, where I almost lost my life through a bacterial infection after a miscarriage. And that's what made me a person that wakes up with gratitude, right? So I'm here to share waking up with gratitude, and you're here to share like, do not let anybody mess with your mental strength. Like that's your gift, and you went through the hard stuff for us. So it's like,
and my message is really like, not so much don't let anyone mess with our mindset, yes, but it's really to listen to the soul. I'm like, all the work I'm doing right now is that your soul speaks much faster than your brain, and it's subtle, but the more we learn to tune in our antenna and to really listen to our soul's desires and our soul's direction, it's here to guide us like all day long, every decision. And if we can just be still enough to listen to the first voice, that's our soul, before the second voice, that's your brain, kicks in, we will never be misguided. But, you know, I was talking to someone the other day, and she kept saying, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep falling into that pattern? Like, I'm always stuck in this depressive thoughts, and like, I know I should do this, but I end up doing that. I'm like, babe, you know what? Stop beating yourself up. It's just, we're always training ourselves. So all you've done is train yourself to listen to the second voice. Right. So what if instead of saying, I'm this way, I'm that way, I always do this, you just said, what if I just practiced listening to the first voice? What if I could just train myself to listen to a different tone and just dial into that? And that's your focus. It's not about changing your mindset. It's not about changing this or being different. It's like, just train myself to listen to the first ping, which is my soul calling.
That is an amazing suggestion. I do talk about that intuition, listening, but I hadn't really thought about it that way. It's like, what's that first voice?
That first thing, right? It's like a flash. It comes through, and then the brain's like, yeah, but we can't do it because we don't have enough time, and there's not enough money, and the kids will think this, and my mom, and it's like the brain is like it's like a judge, and it's got like this stack of files, and he's like, look at all the reasons why, you know, we have to justify and defend and explain. And really, if we're just like step 1 second before that and just listen, you know, just like I said, when I was sitting there with that client and she said, you got to open the studio, my soul spoke, but then my brain kicked in right away. Right. But I was enough to just be like, I felt that like expansion in my body, and I got the download of all the doubt, sure. You know, but I chose to listen to the first voice.
So speaking of changing the way that we think, you have declared this year as the year of unlearning. You wrote a really beautiful post on Facebook that caught my attention. I was like, what is she talking about? This is something really different that I had never really heard of or thought of as a way to get away from the like constant striving and achieving and success and checking out your checklist. So tell us what this year of unlearning is all about.
So unlearning is really the movement that I am 100% like getting behind, instigating, inspiring all of my clients to come into my, I want it to create a ripple effect because, we've already talked about, I came from a background of athletics. So I understand competition really well, as do you, right? So we know it's in the past. I was in athletics, then it was like school performance, then in business, it was always like, I wanted something, boom, I set goals, I go get it. It was always about achieve, go after what you want. And the things like, that's the old blueprint. It's how we've been taught, you want something, chase it. And then when we get it, it's like, we're happy for like 10 seconds because already we're standing on the podium, like thinking about the next race or wondering what we would have done differently to get even more, a better time. Or, we celebrate for 3 days if we're really lucky. And then we already start feeling depressed, like we're not in the process anymore. And so it's just this constant chasing and hustling and grinding and having to consume more information on business, more information on training, more information, like what else could I do? What else can I learn? And we're just like this insatiable hunger, but not in a good way. It's like we don't even recognize we're already so full, but we're constantly just trying to stuff more in and do more. But the problem is so many of the time we're chasing a new goal. Yeah. We've got this old operating blueprint, I call it, all of the thoughts and the beliefs and the ideas that we have about the past, the way that we view the world, we're coming into it with this identity, which is a construct of all the stuff we've learned from society, from our parents, from our religion, the way we should act as a mother, as a daughter, as a wife, as business owner. I should. We have all these rules that we picked up. And we have all these, processes that we picked up. And if you saw my house, I have all these books that I read. And it's like, I have to do all those things or else. And all of those things were like, every time I did that, I always use this analogy. It's like every one of those things is like a black pillowcase over my head. And every single one of those things is blocking me. Even though the information may be great, what I've been trying to do is keep pressing more new blueprints on top of an old one without unlearning the stuff that no longer applies. Because if I read, a fitness book 20 years ago and what I read today would be very different. But so many people are trying to change their health today with a blueprint from the 70s or the 80s or the 90s. I need to be skinny. I need to do this, low fat, that, right? And we're using these old blueprints, but we're trying to create a vibrant, healthy body. Or we're trying to have gratitude, but we're in this blueprint of hustle and grind every day and like chase everything down. And so we're trying to stack all this new information all the time without releasing and creating space. So it doesn't stick. And then we wonder, but I'm trying so hard. And it takes so much physical, mental, and emotional effort because we're trying to talk ourselves into it all the time because we've never removed the old program. So the unlearning is really about, okay, guys, we do not need to consume more. We don't need to take in more, and I'm not saying don't read, books or podcasts and that. But it's like, have I gone through the process of releasing and unlearning the things that no longer serve me so that I can actually make room for the things that I do want to create and invite into my life? Because if I haven't let those things go, then they won't stick. The new stuff won't stick. And I don't know, I'm like ready to just throw all the old clothes out of the closet so I can make room for the pretty ones I want to wear. You know what I mean?
But that's actually, I love that you summarized it with an analogy. Is like, you got to empty your closet to make room for the stuff you really want to wear. It's like, if your closet is overstuffed, you can't even like reach at a hanger and you want to create a capsule wardrobe. Like you got to just rip it all out, Marie Kondo the heck out of everything, and then come back with like where there's space. Like, and that it's a really good point is that learning involves creating space in our lives, which, like you said, we just fill, and we just have no space for any new stuff to come in, and we just don't allow that space. So this is a really
it is. It's creating this space, and then, but so this is where I think like prayer and meditation and journaling and like all these practices are amazing. But so how many people, like when we go on vacation, we also create space, but then we come back to the same old crap, the same old grind. And people are like always living for the next pocket of space. And so I think space is the amazing first step. And yet it's what I do with the space. Because if I take all my dirty clothes, I'm like, look, I need to throw 90% of these things out, but I take them all out of the closet and I throw them on the ground. I'm like, look at my brand new clean closet. And they're like, okay, let's put everything back in.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work, but that's what we do, right? And so it's like, take it all and let's just get rid of it so that we can put in what we want. And now we can create the programs that we want.
So you've shared some really incredible things and some beautiful ways that you express love, self-love, like in your own life and things that you do around your mindset. One of my favorite things to ask people when I interview them is if you had one recommendation, one habit people could create, one ruthless ritual that, people could start just after watching or listening to you, what would that be for you?
The number one thing, actually we just touched on it, the number one ruthless ritual that that now is like part of it's a very big, huge ritual. It's my non-negotiable, hands down essential thing is I take time to reconnect with my soul or my heart every single day. Whatever that means to you. So what I mean by that is taking the time to, yes, be quiet, but really tune in to get to know yourself again, to get to know your heart again, to get to know your soul. And how you do that is you separate yourself from all the noise and distractions. So that can look like a hike. It can look like quiet time to journal. It can look like meditating. It can look like a lot of things. It's creating space. But again, in that space, just even if it's putting your hands on your heart and just saying like, I honor you, I see you, I love you, and start talking to your heart, not your brain, but start talking to your heart and just get to know your heart again. Get to know your soul. Ask your soul questions, because we fall out of love with ourselves because we're wearing all these pillowcases and we just can't hear anymore. And so I think that if we can take this space and we can just take the time to really, in our bodies, understand what it feels like when we're connected to our soul, so much intuition starts to show up. So much clarity starts to show up. Our decision-making changes because we're just connected at a soul level. And that's where everything else, the working out, the business goals, all the other stuff, it will come when you're connected to your soul because your soul wants you to thrive.
Yeah. Oh, that is a great idea. And again, so simple to do, but it does trigger kind of so many other wonderful things. So, and I like the term, that ruthless ritual, starting something that's non-negotiable. So that is an amazing suggestion. Thank you so much. So I am sure that people will want to connect with you after listening to our really amazing chat. I love where the places we went and the things we chatted about and the things that I've learned from this chat. So where do people connect with you, Christine?
So you can find me on Instagram at Christine Line, or you can go to christineline.com and you can check that out as well. Or you can find us on Facebook under the Unlearning Project. Yeah. And you can actually go to that Facebook group, ask to join, and grab your 10 steps to begin the unlearning process, which is pinned at the top of the group there. You can just follow the link. And it's a simple guide that we've put together with just the 10 things, like 10 steps that we have found are a great place to start if you want to start to deconstruct the old blueprint and create space for more of what you really desire.
Oh, I'm excited. I just joined that group too, and I'm already just reading and following along, and there's there's a lot going on in there, and it's cool to just have a different perspective. Thank you very, very much, Christine, for your time today. It's been such a joy to connect with you, and thanks for sharing your wisdom.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.